Hi guys, and welcome to another video. And as you can tell, I've still got my jacket on. I've literally just got back in from work, and that was a tough one. That was a really tough one to take. That game, absolutely terrible, god awful performance. I've got a lot to say about it, but getting into the game, of course, we went with Pato in goal. We had Alessi, Bart, Ballard, and Hume across the back. Then in the middle, it was almost a standalone role from Dhannoo, who was in there, because then we had Pritchard starting, as well as Clark, Diallo, Roberts, and then of course Gelhardt up top as well. So what was happening with that is, when we were pressing forward, Daniel was by himself in the middle, but then getting back, you could see what we were trying to do. The sort of front lads, be it Clark, Roberts, Diallo, Pritchard, were kind of dropping back into midfield and trying to defend, but that just wasn't working, and he was overrun time and time again, Daniel. But for the first half, although I think Stoke were the better side, we were very similar in terms of, they would sit back a little bit, but as soon as they broke up the play, it was bang, get down the wings, down the players, down the wings where they got players like, Campbell, Lauren, and those type of players. Smallbone absolutely causing us nightmare after nightmare after nightmare. They kept getting down to the byline, pulling it back, and we just, time and time again, we just weren't picking up the late arrivals into the box, because there was just such a huge chunk missing between defence and midfield, and the midfield didn't know what the hell they were doing, so we had gaps all over the shot. But we were doing the same thing, when we were breaking forward. Clark, for me, he was the only player who looked even, slightly dangerous for us, down that left-hand side. A couple of times he took on their right back, got it to the byline and fizz it across goal, and it caused a little bit of carnage in the box before they get it away. But that was the only thing we were doing. Again, it's the sort of third, fourth game in a row where I've said, we get to the edge of the box, we're not shooting. We look so toothless. We don't look threatening whatsoever. Gelhardt, it has to be said now at this point, he's had a run of games. I don't see the point in him. He's not exactly holding up the ball particularly well. He's got a little bit of physicality, but other than that, he's offering nothing. No runs in behind. Time and time again, Bart, sometimes when we like to play pretty football, but something that Danny Bart is very good at doing, and he has done a handful of times this season when the likes of Ross Stewart was playing, he will look for the runs in behind. If we want to play a ball from deep, he was constantly looking up and he's screaming for players to move, but everyone's coming deep for it. You've got players like, Wilmot, you had Jacques, who, granted, he is an ageing player. He doesn't have anywhere near the pace he used to, but he does have that experience, and his positional awareness makes it all right for him, because he can buy himself a yard or two with his positional awareness. But that being said, he still has zero pace, or very little pace, Jacques. So if we made runs in behind, we'll at least give ourselves a chance for Bart to look to ping those balls over the top. And he was constantly looking for him, and he's going like this. He's going, someone move. No one has that instinct or that want and that will to get in behind. Everyone's coming deep for it, then we pick it up and we give it back. We're making no attacking progression whatsoever. And then when we do absolutely nothing with it. It's so frustrating. But then, right, I'm going to get this out of the way quickly. By the way, I'm not blaming this result on the referee at all, whatsoever. Yes, granted, the last string of games, our string of referees we've had have been god-awful, and they've got worse and worse and worse every time. But we can't blame everything on a referee or on refereeing performances. At some point, you need to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, your performances haven't been anywhere near as good. Because our own performances have been just as bad as refereeing performances. But I just had to mention this for the first goal, and I'm sure every other Sunderland YouTuber or other YouTubers have, because it was just that bad. And I just could not believe what I was seeing. And it is becoming... It's borderline cheating at times. That's how bad. I thought it was bad in League One referees. Some of it is just baffling decision after baffling decision after baffling decision. But these referees in the Championship at times, particularly the last few we've had, they just seem to make shit up as they go along. They're making up their own rules. They look fucking god-awful. Firstly, there was a couple of times where Patrick Roberts, I think he's held up the play, and I think it was one of the Stoke lads in the middle. I can't remember. The name escapes me now. Might have been Pearson, actually. As he's kind of coming away, he just left a hand on Roberts. As he's come away with the ball, just left a hand on him. It's basically a fucking punch. Referee right in front of it, nothing. The exact same thing happened to Gelhardt about 20 minutes later. Nothing again. It's like fucking boxing in the middle of the pitch at times. But the big one for me was their original goal. At least a fault to the goal. Their actual goal itself, it was our own defensive mistakes, and it was a perfectly good goal. It just happened to be just before something ridiculous that had happened. So we put a ball into the box. Their keeper comes out for it. He punches and clatters his own right back. But at the same time, he punches and clatters Danny Bart. He's basically punched him across the neck. Danny Bart decks it, as well as their right back. Referee right in front of it, nothing. He don't give anything at all. Don't stop the play or anything at that point. We try and hook it back across goal. It gets cleared off the line. We've got possession in the sort of middle third. We're in control. We have possession, and then just as we're about to put the ball back in the box, referee blows up for their right back who's got a head injury, which is fair enough. But then he gives a drop ball to them. He gives possession back to them. It isn't a contested drop ball. He gives the possession back to them from where the head injury was. We had possession. If anything, we should be given possession back for either where we were. It's absolute bollocks. Those aren't the rules. Well, how the hell do they end up back with the ball? It makes no sense whatsoever. So a blatant penalty hasn't been given, and then they get given possession back when they didn't have it in the fucking first place. Then Hoover, or whoever, however you want to pronounce the right back's name, he's obviously gone off to the sideline because he's injured. But when the drop ball's been given back to the keeper, he's passed it to the injured player as he's coming back on the pitch. He's off the pitch. He's passed it towards him when he's still off the pitch, off the sideline. So he's come onto the pitch to collect it, gone down the right-hand side, and then, of course, this is where I can't blame the referee for it. He's shite defending. But it's just the absolute sort of comical state of how it began and the build-up of it. So Hoover, however you say it, picks up the ball on the right-hand side after just coming back onto the pitch, puts it down the right, unless he's out of position. Gets to the byline, pulls it back. There's absolutely no one picking up again the late one. We've seen a couple of times. Smallbone had done it earlier when he'd arrived late, and no one had picked him up, and we get punished to make it 1-0. Absolutely shocking. We're going to half time, a goal down, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. That second half, my God, I was getting flashbacks of Bolton from last year. I'm not even going to dissect every goal, but it was literally just getting worse and worse. And not many times this season, despite results, or despite a defeat, should I say, have I questioned the character of these lads. And I kind of do after this performance. Because, like Dwight Gale, he was having the luxury of anywhere he wanted in the area at times. His goal, particularly the header, where no one challenged him at all. Players just weren't picking up anymore. They become lazy. The changes were baffling at times from Tony Mowbray. People are calling for Tony Mowbray's head at the minute, which I'm not quite there yet. But that was almost a sackable performance in itself for players, let alone Tony Mowbray. That was absolutely fucking horrendous. Some of those players really need to look at themselves. And I know a lot of people will blame the fact that we don't have a focal point. And I get that 100%. But all 5 goals there, you cannot blame the fact that we don't have a striker. Gelhardt, for me, he isn't a striker at all. He isn't a striker. I don't know what he is. But he offers very, very little, in my opinion. I think maybe alongside someone else like a Ross Stewart, he might offer a bit more. But I don't think he knows where he's going, whether he's coming or going, whether he should come deep, going behind. But he's doing neither at the minute. He's just kind of just following a man and getting marked. And then sometimes balls get pumped up to him, and he'll try and flick a ball on it. It just isn't coming off. So to concede 5 goals at home is absolutely embarrassing. That is 3 defeats on the trot. And it feels like, even with 6 more points, a couple of wins, we can still find ourselves back in the playoffs. But I feel like this is just our season fizzing out in a minute, because the next 4 games, they're really, really difficult. And I can't see us, if we continue playing this way, getting any points from the next 4. So I feel like we're fortunate we've got the amount of points that we do on the board now to keep us safe, because I can't see us getting points from the next few games. I can't if we keep on playing the way we are, because we just look toothless. Gelhardt, I think, needs to come off. Dan Neil needs a rest, because Dan Neil, as much as I love the lad, I really like the lad. I know people stick up for him just because he's a local lad and what have you. I do 100% believe there's a player in Dan Neil. He has the quality. But at the moment, he's had a string of games, amongst others, of course, who had shit games as well. But, I try not to give Dan Neil too much shit, because I do like him as a player. But we need to just call a spade, and he has been poor. He's making certain passes of the ball, easy passes, look so difficult and lumbered. Like, he's got the ball, he's got no pressure underneath him, and he kind of bobbles a pass, and it looks so laboured. Do you know what I mean? When he passes the ball, and it's going nowhere near anyone. A 6-7 yard pass, he's passing it straight to Stoke players. I think Pritch come in deep a couple of times, just give it into him, fizz it into him, and he's putting no power in it, and he gets intercepted. Or it's going no way near him, and people just like, where are you passing it to? No idea. First touch, horrendous. It was his fault for one of the goals. When he just needs to give the ball, and he's faffed around with it, and he made a mess of it. It was just shite, characterless. It was absolutely god-awful, that. It was absolutely god-awful. I don't know where to go from here, because that was one of the worst performances I've seen. If not, it was the worst performance I've seen this season, but it's a really, really hard one. You know, we don't have the excuse of, we played Tuesday, Saturday. We had a full week off. Everyone was saying, we'll be fine after a full week. Get training, get some training and some tactical nous into the legs of the players. Now, absolutely now. I'm quite fortunate about 24 hours to sort of sit back and sit on this, because if I recorded straight after the game yesterday whilst I was at work, I would have just been screaming, shouting and swearing, but I've not calmed down. I feel myself getting more pissed off now. I can tell you that, but it's just a shit performance. Really, really shit. And that's how lazy players become. With every goal we conceded, you can see players walking back off the ball. It was horrendous. That wasn't a Sunderland performance. That was utter shite. But, yeah, back to the drawing board. Big changes need to be made, I think, throughout the squad. Players need to be dropped. We need a different system. What system that will be, I don't know. We need to stop trying to shoehorn Gelhardt in because he's supposed to be a striker. And again, I'm not using him as a scapegoat. Everyone was shit. Dello was shit. Clark, for me, I know people have called him, but he's the only one who's trying to make something happen. Defensively, we're all over the place. I think we really need to get into him, dig into him. I think he's been far too nice to him so far. It's time to give him a bit of grief, get stuck into him and come back stronger. Well, that's it, guys. Hope you've somehow enjoyed. Take care. Stay jammy.